Good day. On November 24th, the following rumors, gossip and insiders were discussed on the sidelines of the Ukrainian authorities. Gossip. There was gossip that the demand for a truce, negotiations is growing in society. Society is tired of the war. Many began to understand that the worse life and living conditions for the whole country. At the same time, the functionaries are again trying to convince people that we are on the verge of a grand victory and we must endure all the hardships. The right hand of Yermak, Mikhail Podolyak, began to write about this. Most likely this idea will now be dispersed everywhere. Zelensky's entourage and the elite do not realize the conditions in which most of the country lives, because the chosen ones have everything, always light, water, food. Another trump card that Bankova uses is the manual military who record videos from the trenches, where it's cold and damp, with an emphasis that stop whining and complaining about a hard life, it's worse than yours. Bankova's goal is to continue the war at any cost. Inside. The source said that the office of the president held talks 4 times in 2 weeks with representatives of NATO and the Pentagon on the need to urgently provide Ukraine with air defense systems. But the West ignores these requests, forcing Zelensky to negotiate with the Kremlin and implement the Sullivan formula. Inside. The source said that the office of the president instructed the mayors of the cities not to talk about a blackout. They do not want to sow panic on Bankova and decided to repeat the track with the Russian invasion, to the very end to deny the possibility of a breakdown in the energy system of Ukraine. Opinion. All official authorities have stated that Ukraine has stopped selling electricity since October 10, but everything is not so clear. It turns out that Moldova is completely dependent on Ukraine. Ukraine continues to sell electricity while its cities remain without electricity. Layout. Everyone is now concerned about the destruction of the energy system of Ukraine, but no one in the world pays attention to the fact that Turkey is also shelling the Kurds, striking at power plants, conditional water utilities and the oil and gas industry. The reason is clear why the EU is afraid of an energy crisis in Ukraine. All refugees will be trampled to Europe, which will again cause billions in losses to the old world, which will have to feed millions of Ukrainians, and even hire thousands of new civil servants. Zelensky understands this, so he demands more money and air defense from Europe. Europe is trying to convince the Russian Federation to stop destroying the energy system of Ukraine. Russia also understands this and does not immediately turn off Ukraine, but gradually strikes. At this moment bidding is underway. We are sure that the energy case is a very sore topic for the office of the president, not because of concern for their people, but because of the risks of losing control over the situation inside the country, so they are trying in every possible way to stop Russia. Layout. Opinion. Of course, the office of the president knew that at some point an infrastructure war would begin, especially after the functionaries themselves gave the order to hit energy facilities. The question is why the office of the president knew that this would happen and did not prepare? Answer: yes, because it is important for functionaries to create a picture and raise the degree of hatred even higher in order to recruit new soldiers again. It's easier to open and hype it in visibility points than to ensure the operation of a thermal power plant. It is worth remembering one thing. For Bankova, today's war is a series where the target audience is the countries of the West. To always keep ratings by views, it is necessary to warm up grief, catastrophes, deaths, tragedies. Inside. MI6 transmitted intelligence to the office of the president and the general staff that the Kremlin had decided to increase the number of Russian troops in Ukraine to 500,000 in January 2023. In addition to the mobilized soldiers, elite units of the Ministry of Internal Affairs and the FSB, as well as new types of military equipment, will be additionally sent to the front. Opinion. Rationality of attacks. In Russia, many believe that by destroying the energy infrastructure, they can either provoke a reaction from the Ukrainian authorities in the form of negotiations, or the population in the form of protests against the authorities. Again, the error of rationality. It was this government that lied to people 48 hours before the invasion that it would not be there in order to hide behind people. It was this government that did not enter into negotiations, knowing that the energy infrastructure would be destroyed. Artificial intelligence changes the algorithm after making a mistake. Russia has decided not to change. They still think that Zelensky will act in the interests of the people of Ukraine. The authorities of Ukraine deeply shit on the suffering of the people. They even need them to show it to Western interests. Children who are forced to bask in the basement of the school is a first-class picture for the Western media, helping to demand new help on an emotional level. At the same time, power has both light, and water, and heat. It's as cold in the apartment as in the trench, one of the slogans of the new campaign, identifying all the people with the army on the front. The further the suffering of the people goes, the more content there will be for the Western media. It is also a mistake to expect people to go to mass actions. The situation is not the same in Ukraine today. So far, Bankova has managed to rally people around hatred for the Russian Federation and prove that the authorities are acting effectively. The level of aggression in society towards the Russian Federation, according to observations, has reached its climax. Inside. The source said that back in October, the office of the president knew about the complete destruction of the strategic infrastructure and decided not to return to the negotiation process. On Bankova, until the last, they hoped for help from the West in air defense systems, but now the Ukrainians will go through the winter without electricity. Zelensky will not negotiate and will wage war until the Ukrainian peace formula is implemented, an interesting aspect of negotiations with the Russian Federation. Zelensky, Podolyak, Danilov and others regularly state that there are no peace negotiations with the Russian Federation and cannot be. At the same time, negotiations on the restoration of the transit of ammonia from Tolyatti to Odessa are welcome. It turns out about the main interest of the people, peace in the country, it is impossible to agree, but about making money with the Russian Federation, you can. Well, how does this differ from the Poroshenko coal supplies from the LDNR? Fact. The Security Service of Ukraine continues to detain local residents in the Kherson and Kharkiv regions, and they have already gone around the third circle and are arresting accountants, petty officials, and entrepreneurs. The main reason for such arrests is the formation of exchange lists to implement the all-for-all formula. Backstage rumors. Due to the cold weather, the situation in Europe with gas is getting tougher. Everyone is waiting for the price increase. This will also affect Ukraine. Now the content of the Ukrainian budget is pouring into a round pretty penny. According to preliminary estimates, the deficit in November will be more than 130 to 150 billion hryvnias, and in December they predict all 180 to 200 billion hryvnias. See you soon.